Fantastic. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I don't blame you. You just heard maybe 4 hours of speeches. Let's get some real work done. How about that? By the way, I thought that music when Tony was playing, it was all meant for you, Uli.
Really?
We know how well a dancer you are. Um, you know, uh, several years ago, Tony, you would recall, you and I were on stage, 2017 in Dubai at Samina Council, and you asked me a very good question. And you said, what do you think the CSPs need to do to be different? I couldn't come up with a better answer than I said, the first thing is to maybe drop the word CSP. Joanne, you used the word today, but you also used a very great word, and that is they should actually be called PSPs, platform service providers. And did we not just see earlier in the morning where Kiran and Anish spoke about geo platforms? I guess I don't think I was right at the time. I just think everybody else is getting it right now. And talking about that, we have none other than Uli here today to talk about growth,
Hmm.
money. Somebody spoke earlier about in the opening sessions that while the hyperscalers have seen exponential growth in the market value, exponential growth in the revenue, we, on the other hand, have not seen the same level of growth. In some parts of the world, we have even seen a marginal decline. Where does the growth come from, Uli? Where does it come next?
First of all, thank you very much for being here. Everybody called me Uli because my mother called me Ulrich, and then I was in serious trouble. So therefore, um, it's always mention Ulrich, but please call me Uli. To be very honest, our customers are paying more money and generating growth if we find a reason why they're paying for it. And 5G is one technology which solves a lot of problems which our customer couldn't solve so far. First of all, I would say if you look to mobile private networks, 5G has a good selling proposition into our enterprise customers. That's number one. Number two, I think the big difference with this kind of mobile private networks are that you have a better latency, right? And that's for industry customers so essential, right? Where their normal wireless LAN doesn't work and they want to feed all their robotics. And the second thing is having this kind of slicing capacity that you bring the bandwidth to the right point, that's also a big differentiator.
Mhm.
So first, solving a problem the customer has. That's where growth comes from. Second, we need also to feed our consumer customers for use cases they experience why they would like to pay for it. You know, a normal consumer customer wouldn't pay for 5G just for bandwidth. That's not where the reality comes from. But they are paying for use cases they want to have. For example, we have a cooperation with the German Football League, right, where you can enter a stadium and you take out your smartphone and you see augmented reality. You see the game, you see how kind of velocity the scorer is, how, let's say, likely it is that he scores, and all the things you want to see. You can turn the camera and all kind of things. And that's where customer wants to pay for.
Of course, absolutely. And I think the big draw for monetizing the 5G networks is going to be a more evolved, more changed customer experience, is what you're saying, both in the consumer realm as well as it's not just about building use cases, but if the use cases don't have a very easy to use, a very simplified form factor, something where uh, and it, whether it's a manufacturing company or a bank or a retailer or for that matter a 18-year-old gamer, if they are not able to draw the experience seamlessly, they are not necessarily, if you were saying earlier to me, they're not buying 5G, they are buying an experience.
Correct.
What in your mind from, and you use a very interesting word for your organization called the modernizing garage. What happens inside the garage?
Well,
Are there cars there?
yeah, you can imagine. It's like, you know, I think the big bang of transformation programs on stack modernization is over, right? There is a continuous modernization. And you can imagine you take your old shitty application, drive it into the garage, there are some tuning expert, cloudificate this kind of application. It's got tuned, it's got bigger wheels, and you drive out with a modern application. That's, I think that's what the guys in the modernization garage are doing.
So it's really about driving a new mindset of application development, and I don't know whether we
Yeah.
are yet ready to discuss the most important word here, which is the platforms, but we'll come to that in a minute. But essence, drive a different mindset to build, to curate, ideate, architect, write new software so that you're able to uh, harness the power of the capabilities that the network provides and the underlying cloud infrastructure provides to try and take and provide more value to their customer. Is that where it is coming?
That's the key. And you said it rightly. Users and our customers, they want to have an experience. They don't buying technology. And this technology and this experience has to be very, very seamless, simple.
So let's try and draw maybe attention to a little second chapter of this book, if I may, a speed book called Platforms. What does that mean? I mean, people have been using this word sometimes loosely, sometimes, I guess, very, very carefully. From your parlance, what is exactly a platform for 5G's growth or growth via 5G into both the enterprise and consumer world? I mean, what should happen inside this platform really?
You know, the platform is you can solve all problems of the world, but to be very precisely, it's everything where we play our product, right, and make this kind of product-centric development happening on that platform and able to scale it. I think the magic behind the platform is always to scale, right? And if you compare, for example, some of the platforms we build, you have, for example, a payment platform, right, where you can add another applications to it, right, where you can use your payments, your loans, and all kind of things to that. And you build an ecosystem on that. And, you know, on that kind of platform, which is product-centric, you want to find easy solutions. And, you know, this world is evolving very fast. This kind of platform has to be very adaptive.
Absolutely. So in other words, and you're not, you're clearly echoing something that we have heard since yesterday and also in the last few months from few other very, very prominent service providers. I'd like to use the word platform service providers
Yes.
or wannabe platform service providers in the industry who have said exactly the same. That gone are the days when you would build a monolithic service and hope that people will buy off that network. Now is the time when you build a reasonably good infrastructure, great microservice oriented capabilities where people can draw from that little platform, build applications on top of it. What kind of changes do you believe a service provider has to make to themselves to be able to adapt to this platform driven business model than what was historically a service driven business model?
That's a good question, Manish. First of all, is an open digital architecture with open APIs, and I mean real open APIs, right? So that's not a disclosure of APIs, real open APIs, because that opens this kind of platform also for innovation. You know, in this speed, this industry evolves, we need to inject innovation on that platform. That means we have to have this kind of open APIs, which makes sure that this kind of innovation connects directly to our ecosystem. And now, that sounds weird, we are opening our APIs, especially if you look on the telco sector, to others to use, right? So that they use our networks, for example, for their product.
That's great. And where would you rate? And I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but given that we have industry leaders here in this room, both on the service provider side as well as the tech provider side, where do you rate our collective readiness today in being able to truly adopt an open way of working? I'm not just restricting this question to an open architecture, but open technology, open software, open architecture, open mindset. How do you rate on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I would say be a bit provocative, right? I would say we are at 6.
6.
6.
Above average?
Yeah, a bit above average. And you know, in this kind of century we are in, there is just one currency which counts, besides experience, it's speed.
Hmm.
And easy integration and easy bringing, let's say, new services on board and being product-centric, that changed the world, right? And if you are speedy, then you're in, and that's why we are all in the modernization garage and tune our things, or you're out.
Am I hearing you say that I think while you think we are at 6 in terms of mindset and readiness, but we can go from 6 to 9 or maybe 10 only if we do something about how we go about doing things, our ways of working. In a sense, I mean, I would love for you to elaborate a little bit about your speed point. Are you referring to, and something which I have heard recently from some of our key clients, that they would like to operate with two speeds, uh, maybe a greenfield speed, while you continue to sweat out your existing asset base as much as possible. A mindset change shift, a more transformative speed. So basically, two-track trains. Not that both of them are parallel; they keep meeting each other like this and come back. Is that something that you're thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. If you look to the digital channels and everything which is customer facing, that has to be high speed, right? And besides this openness and mindset, it's also everything has to come from the customer and the customer experience, right? We don't need to think about the technology. We need to think about the experience we have. On the other side, we need robust technology, that's your brown field or brown back, or
Yeah.
how you call it, right? Which has a solid, let's say, performance and a solid speed and connects to that faster speed. You
Yeah.
don't need a container ship running like a motorboat.
Yeah, that's a fair analogy. I think what we like to call it as keep doing green field with brown patches,
Yeah,
not brown field with green patches.
I got very strange pictures in mind.
Sure, sure. Um, you know, I want to address I don't know what I call, is it the elephant in the room or the monster in the room? The pandemic brought about arguably the most important change in the industry, and that was about the human capital,
Yeah,
right? The pandemic brought in a human crisis, a human talent crisis, if I may, not just a human crisis, but a talent crisis. What I like to believe truly is that while the pandemic may be over or getting over, the talent war is endemic now.
yeah,
And it is not just because of the great resignation that we saw last 2 years. I think it is primarily because the sheer amount of new skills that the industry needs is just not out there. If you don't mind sharing with us a little bit about a few things that you are looking to do to address this human factor, the talent issue, from your vantage point.
all this kind of transformation, all kind of change is coming from us as a human, right? And we have to accept that and we have to buy into that. And looking at especially at skills, right? Um, you know, giving people the perspective where they can grow. And if you look to the Economic World Forum, in the next 5 years, there are coming jobs we even don't know,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And giving people this kind of excitement that this kind of change will also give another perspective to their life. We are building, for example, some innovation centers where we get young people in, but also this kind of upskilling, because everything what we learned in the past will not help us going forward. And bringing cross-functional teams together and open that kind of perspective, that helps also people to realize that this kind of speed of change needs more than just one brain.
interesting. I want to just share with the audience a little thing that we did, and I'll ask you then your response to it. We entered the pandemic at Tech Mahindra. We are at about 160,000 people globally across 70 odd countries. And we realized that with the attrition that we were facing, 20, 30%, and the speed at which our clients across industries, not just the service providers, but across all the wide spectrum, right? Banking to
Yeah.
healthcare to manufacturing to oil and gas. Everybody wanted to speed up, to your point, the digital progress. And we realized that we got to do something about it. And we needed more people than we had. We needed more different people than we needed more leadership than we had. So what we did is we did several things. We acquired new leaders.
Yeah.
That was a natural process. We've done it before. We acquired a lot more. We hired about 60,000 more people in the last 2 years. But then we also did one more thing. We also made about 18 acquisitions of digital native small to medium sized companies. That gave us a new way of thinking, that gave us new leadership, that gave us new talent pool and IP. And we now call that as a new core of TechM. Do you see that service providers like yourselves probably need to also do the same as we go forward in
Absolutely.
terms of acquiring some more software companies?
You mentioned one big difference, and that's leadership, right? In an agile transformation, in agile ways of working, leadership is different than in a traditional way of. And you have to foster growth mindset, sociological safety, and all kind of things. You have to foster, and people, and if we can acquire, we acquire, and that's also for us key, right? We are looking for cloud companies. We are looking also for software companies, because at the end of the day, customer experience is mainly software driven. It's not a physical product. It's not that you can touch the 5G antenna, right? That's
Awesome.
not the case.
If I were to summarize, and maybe we'll open it up for questions in the time that we have, Tony. So if I had to just summarize in 2 lines what you just said in the last 14 minutes. One, what got us here will not get us there. We got to change. And two, the big driver for change is going to be both a mindset change and the people that we need to deal with. Thank you so much, Uli. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Early. Thanks, Manish. We're going to come up and get some questions going here from the audience. But firstly, do we have anything on Slido? Let's have a look if we had any Q&A or any questions coming in on Slido. I saw one come in.
We had one question, which is, why enterprise 5G when we could use Wi-Fi 6 and it's cheaper?
Oh, that's a good question. You hated to get this question, I know.
Yeah, I know. Of course, Wi-Fi standard is also generating and generating new let's say functionalities. But what we are seeing, especially in the enterprise and especially industry area, you have a lot of interference. With 5G, you can manage that even better than with Wi-Fi. Of course, Wi-Fi 6 is cheaper, but if you want to run a factory, you cannot allow that this factory stands still, right?
Yeah. Good question.
And coming back to the point on talent, right? During the keynotes this morning, there was a big, strong section on diversity and inclusion. Do we also need to keep an open mind to
Absolutely.
the risk of barriers to inclusivity as part of our businesses?
Absolutely, John. And I was telling Danielle yesterday when we met her, the one who spoke this morning, I said that there are two aspects to diversity and inclusivity. One is the what and the other is the how. In some parts, many of us have figured the what, that what we need to do. Like recently we acquired 75 young college grads for a certain program in the US for diversity. I must admit and confess, we were not ready for the inclusivity part. It came like a rude shock saying, oh my God, we were not ready for it. And we had to rush and get ourselves prepared. I think the level of preparation that we need to do, the level of openness that we need to bring is, I think the world has not seen it yet.
Did you have to do?
I think we're getting there. I don't think we'll probably, talking about rating, we are at probably 3.5 on a scale of 10, but we have to get to 10. There is no alternative.
We have a lot of growth to do.
A lot of way to go.
I think, may I echo to the diversity and inclusion stuff? We cannot leave that alone, right? It's so important to have inclusion and diversity in, because innovation needs different perspective.
Yeah.
And I would like to invite more and more people to come to tech.
Here's the next question. It's a good one. What is the influence of company size on the war for talent? And how big a telco do you need to be to attract or acquire? And are telcos or PSPs acquiring and attracting these new players?
You know, brand is a big thing, of course. People are looking for brand. But the other thing is also, You know, I had last week, and we are doing that with our managing directors. We have a Gen Z following me, getting 1 day with me, right? And you know, I'm a baby boomer, right? So I'm not Gen Z, and Gen Z thinks different, right? Really, really different. They have different answers, and so therefore the purpose is so important. Besides the brand, the purpose, why you are working and why you want to do that, that's so important. And I think that is something which you have to make clear, otherwise you will not get this kind of.
You know, if I may come in on that, Tony, I think while it matters, but what matters more is leaders are the people that they follow, their mindset and their openness. If that's great, I think anybody, doesn't matter how big you are or small
Size
you are.
doesn't matter in this case.
I'm still getting over the idea of spending a day with Uli, you know, as part of a job function. We might have to close off now, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say something before they do go. I'm still trying to comprehend the brown and green patches. And I think we're going to have to chat about this a bit later on. It's a bit scary, that one.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much to Uli and Manish. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.